It wasn't until I met with that girl and spoke to her one-on-one that I understood what happened to me. And it was healing. It was healing, and it was therapeutic to know that I wasn't alone, and to talk to so many other people, so many other girls who, you don't have to say much when you start to talk about your trauma and someone has experienced it too. That's where the phrase "me too" is so powerful, because it's like there's power in knowing that someone else knows precisely how you feel. But it was sad. Like, it was healing, but it was sad to me that all of us girls, I mean, the stories are like wretched.
I'm gonna give you this mic back, but what I'm gonna say to the ladies that been told that you cannot have, you tell the devil you's a liar.
Okay. Bueno. Ay, Dios mío. Ay, Dios mío. Alrighty, so I don't think I like orange in this one. Bueno. So I'm not even gonna say the usual, how I don't want to be here all night, blah blah blah. Yeah. It's understood. But I do want to, hold on, let me make sure. I don't know if this produces any vapor, but if it does, it's coming. If you see any vapor, it's coming from my aromatherapy diffuser. Okay, so really quickly before I begin this video, I do want to give a very quick trigger warning or a disclaimer. I may actually just put the text that explains in more detail like what the trigger warning is, but in this video I will be discussing incidents of abuse that occurred in the foster home that I grew up in for the first 7.5 years of my life. So if you are sensitive to topics that have to do with any form of abuse, you may find the content of this video to be triggering. You may want to avoid it altogether. Or if you are interested in continuing with this video series and you do want to make it through the video, I would just caution you to go at your own pace. Maybe not watch the whole video at once, because I am just going to recall different incidents that were abusive and traumatic. So I just wanted to give that warning before I begin. But now I will actually begin this video. So, okay. Oh yes, let me say my intro statement. You are listening to the Emancipated Star. I am the star who became emancipated at the age of 16. This is the story of my journey before, during, and after my emancipation. So this video is video number 3 in the first season of this series. As I stated before, the first season of this series is specifically about my time in the foster care system, specifically as a ward of the state of Florida. In the previous video, which was video number 2 or episode number 2, I discussed the structure of my foster family home and the family dynamic of my foster siblings and my foster mother and myself, as well as other things that I just recall about growing up in the home, like just general memories that I had. So in case you missed it, or just like needed a recap, that is where I left off in episode number 2 or video number 2 of this season, which is season number 1. This is video number 3. And in this video, as I stated, I'm going to be talking about the abuse that I experienced and that I witnessed in the foster home. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes as per usual. I do want to mention that I do have a poetry collection titled Things I Never Said. This is my poetry collection that I published in 2018 when I was 19. So if you are someone who has the poetry collection or you are familiar with any of the poems, then you may be familiar with some of these incidents that I'm going to speak about. The first 40 or so pages of the poetry collection are dedicated to and particularly about my time in the foster care system, and I do recall some of the like most traumatic and like gut-wrenching moments in that first part or first section of the poetry collection. So yeah, some people who are familiar with it, maybe some other videos where I talked about it, or who have just like heard me recite some of the poems, you may be reminded of some of those poems as you listen to me talk about my experiences. So I just want to put that out there, and you can click the link in the description to find the poem as well as other notebooks like the one that is right here on my shelf, and other products and information if you'd like. Okay, so I experienced abuse in the foster home at the hands of several members in the home. I also experienced abuse at the hands of other people who were not in the foster home. So I'm just going to start with like one person at a time. First and foremost, I also want to say I was in the foster home for 7.5 years. I was transferred out just before I turned 8, or just before my 8th birthday. So these incidents happened over the span of that time. My earliest memories begin in Miami, of course. Like, I don't recall being in my birth parents' custody because I was only several months young when I was placed into the custody of my foster mother. However, I do remember being severely beaten before I had even entered kindergarten. And typically when you're in kindergarten, you're age 5. So prior to the age of 5, I had already experienced abuse. Like more than likely by the time I was in preschool, I had already experienced physical abuse. So that's just where I will start with. So I'll start specifically with my foster mother. And I think in the previous episode, I did mention briefly that I experienced abuse from her as well as and so did other children. So I'll just say some general things before I specifically talk about like my experiences with each person. My foster mother, I do think maybe in her mind she did love us, or love me. I can speak for myself. Maybe in her mind she did love all of the children in her home. And I think in her mind she probably would say like that she did her best to care for all of us children, and sometimes that meant disciplining us. And maybe that's how her and other like older people born in the 50s and the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that's like how they justify brutalizing children, right? But I would describe her methods of discipline to be exactly like that, brutal. It was a regular occurrence for all of us foster children and the 2 youngest grandsons who were the biological children of her adult daughter who lived in the home to experience physical abuse at the hands of our foster mother, at the hands of my foster mother. My foster mother would regularly beat us with a belt. She would beat us with a shoe sometimes, and sometimes she would beat us with a switch. And I know that, or I learned from growing up with a Black American foster mother, that is common. Like in Black American culture, I've also seen like Black American people like kind of like laugh and like, or laugh about and like just casually mention like their grandmother or their mother saying like, oh, go get that switch, and you know, don't make me tell you to go get that switch. So I know that like being beaten with a switch is like very specific to like Black American culture. Everybody abuses their children across cultures, across ethnicities. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm saying like the whole grab a switch thing is like very Black American from what I have gathered, learned, and heard and experienced. So it was not foreign for her to tell us to go outside and grab a branch from a tree. So we had to pick the weapon that she was going to use to beat us. And again, we were very small children at the time, like all of us. My sister, my biological sister in the foster home, myself, and then her youngest grandson. We were all elementary school age children, and the other grandson who was younger. He was, I believe, in like 6th and 7th grade. He was already in junior high, in middle school. So yes, she would make us all grab a switch, and she would make us line up, and she would have us pull our pants down, and one by one she would like, excuse me, this is like very triggering for me. As I was saying, she would make us line up like in a line, right? Or she would make us form a line. One by one, she would call us to the couch, and then she would make us bend over the couch, or forcibly bend us over the couch after making us pull our pants down to reveal our bare skin. She would bend us over the couch, and then she would beat us with the switch that either she would go grab from outside, like from the from the tree, or that she made us go grab from the tree and bring to her, so then she would beat us. Sometimes she beat us with the switch, sometimes she beat us with a belt. It was always painful. It was always brutal. We always screamed and hollered. I specifically remember kicking and screaming so much because it's painful. And like, if you have like a 200-pound woman who is like beating you senselessly, like and rapidly with a belt, like it's painful on your bare skin. It's very painful. And like, I think like one of the reasons I have no empathy for adults who abuse children is because there's no justification for it, in my opinion. And then I think that the adults don't think about how much force and how much pressure they use, like, and that they have, especially compared to our like small, like brittle bodies. They don't think about like all that force when they're just, beating you senselessly like that. So yeah, it was always painful. Even thinking about it now, I physically feel so uncomfortable just like recalling it because it was so painful. And I would kick, I would scream, like my little legs would be like flailing while I'm trying to, squirm and like get away from the bout. And she would just hold us down and hold me down and like force me down while she continued to beat me. And then she would have the next child come and do like bend over the couch so she could beat him or beat my sister. And it was all just so wicked. Even the fact that she would make us bend, before we have to bend over the arm of the chair, she would make us pull our pants down and our underwear. So she revealed my bare vagina to the boys, her young grandsons, just to add to the humiliation and just to make things, I guess, just worse for us. And it's sick. There's no justification. I hope God really does, or whoever it is, I don't even care, God, Satan, I don't care. I just hope that people who do that kind of thing to children, I hope that they get exactly what they deserve. In fact, I think people who brutalize children, what they deserve is for when they are vulnerable and elderly, for them to face the exact same treatment that they do to children. Because we have this culture in society where we say elders are precious and so vulnerable. And like when people get older, they get to hide behind the elderliness. They get to hide behind the fact that they're old, like I've heard people say like, oh, I don't want to talk to my parents about how they pained me, how they traumatized me. Like, especially older people, millennials typically have that sentiment that they just don't want to bring it to their parents' attention, how their parents scarred them because their parents are old and they don't want to raise their blood pressure. And they feel like they should be sensitive to the fact that they're fragile and delicate. And it's like, well, as adults should be sensitive to and very considerate of the fact that the children are fragile, the children are delicate, and beating someone is not going to teach someone whatever lesson it is that you want the child to understand. It's you're just inducing trauma. you know, and I think it's a lazy way of so-called parenting to just go grab about. But anyway, that's just my opinion, as someone who's been, like, you know, scarred and traumatized by being brutalized as a child by adults. So that's just one thing that she would do, and I think, like, the humiliation aspect of it was also as painful as the physical abuse, like that, being humiliated and exposed, like you know, in terms of my genitals and stuff, to all the other children. All of it was just so, like, degrading and dehumanizing. Um, and another thing that she would have us do, my sister and I particularly, so my sister was the only foster girl who was actually related to me, and I learned this, of course, later on, that we weren't related to anyone else in the home. But she would specifically punish my sister and I by starving us and making us, well, all the foster girls, we were all told, like, we weren't allowed to eat past a certain point. But she would also make us, my sister and I, line or, like, stand next to each other and do like 100 jumping jacks. And I don't know why. It was just something she would make us do, and she would threaten us and tell us she would beat us if we stopped. I think that 100 jumping jacks for, like, small children, like children who are in kindergarten, children who are like preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that's not necessary. You know, maybe make them take a lap around the yard, maybe go pick up all the leaves in the yard or something like that. But I would be in so much pain doing those jumping jacks, and literally I would come up with any excuse to go to the restroom so that I could just sit on the toilet and catch my breath, because I was in so much pain, like in my torso, my abdomen, because I don't know, like, why I didn't understand, like, why she would do that, but it was just painful for me. And she could see that we were in pain. She would see we would get tired, and she would just tell us, like, she would just threaten us, like, if you stop or if you slow down, then I'm gonna beat you. It was bizarre to me. Um, another, I actually talked about this incident I'm getting ready to share. Um, there was something that I refer to as the orange soda incident that happened. I believe I was already in kindergarten at the time. I may have been in preschool still, or in kindergarten or first grade. But yeah, nonetheless, I was very, very young, maybe 4 or 5 years young. And this incident actually happened to one of my foster sisters, so one of the foster girls. There were 2 other foster girls in the home in addition to my sister and I, and those girls were a little bit older. I believe that they were in junior high. One of them may have even been in high school. But yeah, nonetheless, they were young teenage girls. And as I said, sometimes we were not allowed to eat. We were not allowed to eat past a certain point, even when we were hungry, even if her daughter didn't feed us while our foster mother was away. Like, she would come back to the house and maybe give us, I think it was like Burger King at the time. I specifically remember one time she came to the house and she was so upset when she found out that we hadn't eaten anything, that her adult daughter, had not fed us anything. So she yelled at her daughter, and I think that her daughter left, or she left, to go get like fast food down the street, the Burger King, and she gave it to us. Fast food does not fill you up, you know. I mean, maybe for some people, but it's one of those things that, from my experience, like, it'll satiate you for a short while, right? But it's not like an adequate meal. So sometimes, you know, we would just be hungry later on in the evening, and the rule was just that we were not allowed to go into the kitchen past a certain point. We had to eat when food was prepared, and that was it. And I don't know, some people can justify that and say that it's because it's for your health. Like, I know older people tend to say, like, don't eat past 8 p.m. because, like, your metabolism is slower when you're older, right? But I think that sometimes adults can be, and I'll be honest, I think brown skinned people, like, you know, foreigners, the foreigners, like my West Indian parents, Caribbean people, you know, African people, brown skin Southeast Asians alike, and Black Americans, from what I've witnessed, are sometimes just unnecessarily strict and brutal towards their children. You know, the child's not going to die if the child eats, like, I don't know, a couple of pieces of fruit or a couple of pieces of, I don't know, some vegetables or a bag of chips, just as long as the child goes to brush his teeth or brush her teeth again, like, or, you know, just before you go to bed or something like that. It's not that big of a deal. I think that the control thing is really a problem, especially amongst those, you know, ethnicities I mentioned, and Black people. And of course, it could be the case amongst white people, but from what I've experienced, white people tend to spoil their children and give their children like too much, whereas brown skin people tend to deprive their children, not give their children enough. So it's just two opposite ends of an extreme. Anywho, so we were hungry. Like I said, we were always hungry. And one of the older foster girls thought it would be wise to just go upstairs and go just find whatever she could, because we were always hungry down there in the basement. So the two eldest foster girls decided to go and grab some whatever they could. Like, they didn't even know, they were just gonna grab whatever. And they told my sister and I to keep a lookout. So we stayed in the base, at the base of the staircase that led to the basement. And we were just like, you know, peeking around the corner the whole time to see what they were doing in the kitchen. And then there was a staircase like right in front of us that of course ascended to like the small like upstairs region of the home. And my two older sisters, the foster girls, were in the kitchen like rummaging around. And I think what happened is that the foster girl, one of the girls, she opened a brand new liter of soda, or a bottle of soda that had maybe been slightly open. So it made the like shh sound, like when you open the soda and like, you know, it releases all the like carbonation stuff or whatever, the gas. So she was like, or the bottle was like shh, right? And I think that that's what awoke my foster mother. So when she did the shh, my sister and I were like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So we like snuck right back down the stairs because we were so scared and it was so loud. And yeah, as you would imagine, my foster mother awoke, and the two foster girls were still in the kitchen, and I think the other one was still like rummaging around looking for stuff, and then one was just like drinking the liter of soda when she got caught. So my foster mother came downstairs. She saw her with the liter of soda, and she had a belt in her hand. And she called my name, and she called my sister's name, and she said, "Come upstairs." So she just knew that we were awake. So, and she told her, "Keep drinking." So we came upstairs, and she said something to us like, "Oh, this is what you wanted, so you're gonna get what you wanted, and I'm gonna show you something, and this will be the last time something like this ever happens." Like, she said something like along those lines, like threatening us. And she told the girl, she tightened her grip on the belt, and she like, you know, took the belt, and she was like, "Keep drinking." And the girl was like, the foster girl was like, "No, like I don't want any more. Like, I'm sorry, it's okay." And she said, "No, I told you you're gonna keep drinking." So, long story short, she forced the girl to continue to drink from the liter of soda. And this is a whole bottle, like a full bottle of orange soda that she forced this girl to drink as much of as possible. Of course, this story makes me very, very uncomfortable. Anywho, of course, the girl began to get sick drinking the orange soda. So she began to vomit. My God, my God, my God. She began to vomit inside of the bottle of orange soda, and she projectile vomited. Like, she was like she made the loud noise, everything, and just vomited all over the floor. It was disgusting. She vomited all over the floor, the counter, in the bottle, on herself. And my foster mother told her, "Keep drinking." And the girl was like, obvious. She couldn't even speak. Like, her lips were quivering. Like, she had throw up all over her mouth. Like, it was disgusting, degrading, dehumanizing. My foster mother told her, "Keep drinking." So the girl, oh my God. The foster girl, took the bottle, and she continued to drink the soda, even with her vomit inside of the bottle, like the vomit. I could see the vomit in the bottle. Ay, Dios mío, oh my God. It's like, it's just so nasty. And it's also just so sad. But she, you know, she did as she was told, and she kept drinking the soda. And she eventually, my foster mother told her she could stop. The girl kept throwing up, you know, like doing belch. What is it called? I don't know if it's belch. It's not belching, but is it retching? Like when you go like that sound, basically. She kept doing that because she was essentially drinking her own vomit. And my foster mother, she began to hit her with the belt. Even though she had already degraded and dehumanized her, she decided to do so further. She began to hit her with the belt, and she was yelling at her and telling my sister and I that next time this is going to be you. She was like, I told you not to come into the kitchen, like hitting her. And she turned to us and she put the belt in our face and told us, next time it's going to be you if I ever catch you all in the kitchen. So we never ate past whatever the bedtime was, 8 p.m. or whatever it was when the kitchen was closed. We never went upstairs. We would just lay there hungry at night, like not able to ask anyone and what have you. And I'll get to my sister, because my sister found like if you could say, a quick fix for that, but at my expense. But I'll get to her in a moment. Another incident that I vividly remember that happened to the other older foster child is so the other foster girl that like snuck into the kitchen, but this was like at a separate time. I don't even know what she did, but she was reprimanded or punished by being told to get on her hands and knees and make herself like a dog. We had 2 large golden retrievers in that household. A boy and a girl, from what I remember. And she was told to form like them, like to make herself like a dog on the floor, put her hands behind her back, and to put her face at the or lower her face to the dog bowl and eat like a dog. So she was forced to eat the dog food from a dog bowl as if she were a dog. And my foster mother once again stood there with a belt over her and made her get down on her knees and eat from a dog bowl, like eat actual dog food from a dog bowl. I can only imagine like the smell. I can only imagine just how degraded a child, anyone would feel, but especially a child, you know? And it's like, and for what? Like, she did those things to us, like, and for what? But you know what? I want to say something before I continue, because I read Frederick Douglass's autobiography, and when I was a junior or a sophomore in high school. And yeah, I think I was a junior in high school when I read it. It was for my English class. And I remember when I read, and I may have mentioned this in another video recently, but I remember when I read the part in his memoir about how the enslaved people, including himself, were treated. And some of the things that stood out to me is he said that they were rounded up, like whenever they were punished, all of the enslaved people would have to line up and they would be like whipped one at a time. And I thought about how all of the foster children in the home would be forced to line up, and then she would beat us with a belt and like, you know, hold us down, like as if it wasn't bad enough that we were already hit and squirming and stuff. She will hold us down and punish us like that. So I made that connection like instantly. And then another thing that Frederick Douglass wrote is that when the slave master, like the Caucasian, the colonizer, the slave owners, when they saw that the enslaved people, the African people, liked anything like molasses or anything like that, he specifically gave the example of molasses. They would specifically force the enslaved person to consume so much of it that the person would become sick and not have a taste nor desire for that thing ever again. And I thought about my sister to the point where I put the book down because I almost became like overwhelmed with tears. I think I was sitting right there in my English class when I read that section. So I just put the book down for a moment and just like, I don't know, compartmentalize it because I was like amongst other students. No one would understand like unless I explained my like upbringing to them. But it moved me greatly because I made the connection and thought about how this is how like generational pathologies, this is how generational trauma is perpetuated over the years and throughout the bloodlines. It's when people don't learn from their history, when people are so disconnected from their history. One thing that I noticed with Black American people is Black American people do not like Africans. Black American people do not want to, by far and large, obviously, like everyone's individually, everyone is different, but Black American people are typically people like, I ain't no African, don't call me African, I don't want to be called African. They don't like African people. And I think that that's their colonizer part, because for Black Americans or African Americans are African and Anglo-Saxon in one. They are the enslaved person and the enslaver in one. The colonizer and the colonized in one person. They carry the spiritual energy and the bloodlines of both. And the most Caucasian part about them, or the most colonizer or Anglo-Saxon part about them, is their hatred towards Africans, and they don't even see it. And that's my opinion, that when they are like, don't call me no African, like they don't want to be called African American at all, even though that's like, even though if you check all of the history, all the textbooks, before they were called Black Americans, they were literally called African Americans because they come from Africa. But they have this thing about them where they're like, a lot of the Black Americans don't want to be called African. They don't want to be associated with Africa. They're like, well, my roots go back to Louisiana. And it's like, okay, and once upon a time, North America was not inhabited by Africans, nor was it inhabited by Europeans. It was inhabited by indigenous people who, yes, looked just like me, yes, looked just like Africans, but they were not Black people. The constructs of Blackness and whiteness are very new things. Like, for example, I've shared this plenty of times, I'll continue to share it. When they say Christopher Columbus encountered Native Americans when he came to the West Indies, he's talking about us, because if you're Caribbean, you are Native American. The Caribbean islands are part of North America. Central America is America. South America is America. If you're Panamanian, you're Native American. If you're Honduran, you're Native American. If you're Mexican, you're Native American. If you're Colombian, you're Native American. If you're Bajan, Barbadian, Grenadian, Bahamian, you are Native American. You're Cuban, you are Native American. Haitians, Martinicans, French Guyanese, St. Martiners, we are all Native Americans. The United States of America is only one part of America. We are all from America, right? So we are the indigenous people of America. And yes, the indigenous people everywhere looked like us. They didn't look like white people with a tan, like what they like to show us and say those are Native Americans. No. They look like us because it is our features that date back hundreds of thousands of years, like our lands, right? Anywho, so I understand there the Black people who are like, oh, Black people were already here. Those were not Black people. Those are indigenous people. Call our people what we are, indigenous people. That's I think a lot of the low self-esteem that Black American people have. It is tied to the fact that they don't really know who they are, and they reject who they are because they reject Africans. They don't like Africans, and a lot of that has been taught to and passed down to them by their colonizer counterpart. But as long as they continue to reject their Africanness, which is their indigenousness, right, their true origin, I think that their people, the Black American collective, will continue to struggle as it has over the decades, right? And I think that they will also struggle as a people to rise up and see their value. Like they really have it really bad. They see the white man's ice as colder and better, as the saying goes. And there's a lot there, but I'll save that for another video. But anyhow, I had to say that because I think that learning about the treatment of their enslaved ancestors, like I did when I read Frederick Douglass's memoir would help them to connect the dots as to like what is the behaviors that are, it'll help them like see the behaviors that are toxic and perpetuated amongst their people that exist today, that stem from their time, their ancestors' time under enslavement. And I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to know where your behavior comes from. You have to understand, or you should understand, you should want to know like where your thoughts come from, the sentiments that you have about yourself, like I said, I've noticed Black American people tend to have really low self-esteem, the way they talk about themselves, especially like the girls and the women. Like, wasn't it just last year that they were like online talking about how it's so terrible being dark skinned? Like there was a whole trend of them saying like, telling their stories of what it's like to be the ugly dark skinned girl or whatever. And it's like, if you understood the power of your melanin, if you understood like that you us melanated people, we are the beginning and we are the end. We are the beginning. This is a brown world. It will always be a brown world. Your genes are dominant for a reason. God made us. Don't they say God made Jesus? Jesus was made in God's image, and Jesus was what? Brown skin with wool-like hair. If you were made to look like Jesus, who God made to look like God, how could you ever think of yourself in such a low quality way? That's like basically saying you think of God in such a low quality way. And the way they talk about like other people, you know, in the fetishization of other people and stuff, as deeming them like as exotic. Like even with us West Indians, they call like their men who like, oh, they're so exotic, and we are exotic. But I think all brown skinned people are exotic. I know we are. Our features are, you know, we're deemed exotic years ago. It's only Black American people who don't see themselves as exotic and see like anybody who is closer to whiteness and in proximity to whiteness as being better than them. And it's really bad. And again, I do think a lot of it stems from sentiments that were in notions and sentiments that were instilled in them or their ancestors throughout slavery, and it's just been passed down and perpetuated. And as long as they are like rejecting like their African history, they will not be able to connect it and see where it comes from. And you know, so anywho, as it connects to my foster mother, her beating us children like that, senselessly like that, I wholeheartedly think that was behavior, that was something like spirit, it was demonic, right? Demonic. But I think that was generational. Like that was probably done, more than likely done to her ancestors in that same way, which is probably why the behavior overcame her, overwhelmed her, and she was just, I don't know if I would say comfortable, but I guess just okay with permitting herself to brutalize us children like that. Like the way we would scream and holler, and the way she would beat us so uncontrollably, like a demon, like truly a demon. A demon. We would cry in horror if we ever saw elderly people be subjected to such treatment. Yet there's so many people, especially Black American people, who will be like, oh, well, that's what they ass get, and well, that's just how it is, and y'all need to beat y'all children. And it's like, and that's why U.S. American citizens put their parents in nursing homes. It's not very common, like amongst the foreigners, for us to like put our parents in nursing homes and stuff across the globe. But over here, like, you know, like the foreigners would be like, why is that a culture here? But it's because of the normalization of mistreating the children, bragging about it, and what have you. Everybody beats their children and disgraces their children. But I think that the way that it's like justified over here, especially like in the rhetoric from Black American people, is so damaging. And then, you know, it leads to, if you're going to be unapologetic and brag about how you like brutalize your children and encourage people to quote unquote beat their children more, then of course the children are going to grow up to be adults who are unapologetic about wheeling you into the nursing home and letting, I don't know, Social Security maybe take care of you. You know, the culture of normalizing, glorifying, and excusing the harm of children in the home across cultures needs to stop, especially when we see that in the society, the trafficking and the abuse of children is also such a common practice. I digress. I will leave that for later. Anywho, I wanted to say that because, like I said, as soon as I read that part of Frederick Douglass's book, I instantly connected it to that behavior. And I think a lot of the culture of like grabbing a switch from outside is like, how don't they think of how their ancestors were whipped, and how they're essentially doing the same thing? How don't they make that connection? It's bizarre to me. Anywho, there was another incident with my foster mother that I specifically want to talk about, but let me see. Okay, so there was another incident, and in my poetry collection, I talk about the incident as well. In the poetry collection, there's a poem called How I Learned to Stand Still. That poem was very difficult for me to write, not because the writing was difficult, but the emotional aspect of it is where the difficulty lied. It was essentially very painful for me to like relive the moment and then to make the connection that I did. But I'm glad that I wrote the piece because I learned something. And what I learned is how I learned to stand still. That's why I came up with that title. So I guess I'll start with the story first and then explain the title. So there was a birthday party. I believe the birthday party was for one of my foster mother's grandsons, like maybe the youngest one, who was like closer to my age by I think like a year. Her youngest grandson had a birthday party at the house, and they had a bouncy house, like the blow up the house that you blow up and the kids get inside of it and like jump around and stuff. Yeah, I think it's called a bouncy house. So they ordered a bouncy house. Like they had a lot of children in the neighborhood come over. I wouldn't be surprised if she paid for that party using the checks that the state gave her for us foster girls, right? Just saying. So, but it was a nice party initially, right? There were a lot of children in the neighborhood and like different family members and stuff like that. And at one point, the children, like of various ages, were all in a circle, and there was music playing, and they were having like a little dance battle. It was supposed to be like playful. Well, at one point, the older foster girls, they got in the circle, that's like at different times, basically two children at once would get in the circle and just dance like, oh, like, just dumb stuff, So they were just like being like goofy, being silly and stuff like that. And then like these two girls got into into the circle. And I think that they were the foster girls. But it could have been one foster girl and just another girl from the neighborhood or something like that. But I just remember these two girls got into the circle, and at first they were being like playful, like just doing like silly dances and stuff. And then one of them started booty popping. Nowadays it's called twerking, but back then, like in Miami, and like when I was a child, like in the early 2000s, there was no such thing as twerking. It was called booty popping, where you like, like the Tina from Bob's Burgers, like that. So they were in the circle, and they just started doing that. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, because we were not allowed to like dance like that and like be provocative or just like inappropriate in any type of way. So I was like literally the way I grew up with my foster mother, like she didn't even let us play like the radio. She didn't let them play the radio when she was home, like only gospel music, or like she had like a record player and she would play like Marvin Gaye, Bill Withers, Barry White, Al Green, so in love with you. Like I was a little girl listening to like those artists because she did not want to play I think it's called secular music or something. She didn't want to play like anything that was of the time. So I didn't even learn the names of artists from that time until later on, like 10 years later, when I was like already in my parents' custody and stuff and had access to the internet, because it was like the people in the house basically had to like sneak to listen to the radio at the time. So anywho, it startled me and surprised me like to see them just like dance like that. But then after the girls got in the circle and they were booty popping and stuff, like the children were like, oh, oh, like, you know, like encouraging them and like being like really like rowdy about it. So then they were like, they told my sister, and they're like, okay, like now you get in the circle, you get in the circle. And they told my sister, because we were like, we're so close in age, we were treated almost like we were twins. If I had a chapstick, she had to have a chapstick. If I had the, you know, overall, she had to have overalls too. So they always like made us do everything together. So they told us both get in the circle and dance against each other. And my sister and I, just being like little girls, like, you know, 5 and 6, or, you know, I was probably like 5 and she was probably like 7 already or something like that. But yeah, just really like small children. And we were just dancing like playfully and stuff. And they're like, no, 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 dance like the other girls, dance like the other girls. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And they're like, do the move, like do the move, like the booty popping move. And I didn't want to. And my sister like already started to, so she was just doing it. They're like, oh, oh. And then they're like, come on, Star, like, come on, come on. And I just did like a little, you know, sophisticated, you know, like, cause I was so scared to like dance like that. And I'm still not like it's the type to sexualize myself at all. So, as I sit here with a turtleneck. Anywho, so yeah, so I just didn't want to dance like that, right? And I guess like my foster mother saw us dancing like that, because like I said, the children kept being rowdy, like, oh, 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 do the move, do the move. So, you know, I think it caught her attention, but unbeknownst to me. So my sister and I, like, what I remember was like I dusted her feet. I don't know if people still do that move, or if people even do like dance battles, but like when you think like you're dancing and you're winning, like you like dust yourself off or whatever, you like dust someone's feet. So I remember I went down and then I like dusted her feet, and they're like, oh, okay. Like I remember doing that, like being really silly and playful. So I did the little, you know, booty popping for just a moment, and then I like stopped because I was like, no, I'm not comfortable doing this. So anywho, as soon as we got out of the circle, I remember some boy came and tapped me on my shoulder and was like, hey, like your ma wants you. We call her Ma all the time, like Ma. So they were like, Ma, like your ma wants you. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know, like why? Like I didn't understand like what happened, you know? You can imagine what happened. So my sister, and he told us like she wants both of you. So my sister and I were like, oh, okay, like we didn't understand. So we went into the back door, went through the back door of the house, and she was there. He told us where she was, so we were in there. As soon as we opened the door, she was like pacing, like she was so upset, like like upset like that, like visibly upset. Like you would think somebody died, right? She had the bell in her hand, and she just immediately, like, she told us to close the door. So we closed the door, and she was like, who told you to dance like that? And she's like, have you ever seen me dance like that? And I didn't even understand. I'm like, did I dust her feet wrong? Like, I was just so confused. I didn't, because that's how little, like, that's how insignificant the little, like, booty popping thing was for me. I like, didn't think much of it. Like, it was innocent, basically. But not in her eyes. So she was just like, who told you to dance like that? Like, did I ever tell you, have you ever seen me dance like that? And we were like, no. And she just started raining like hits on us, like out of nowhere. Just grabbed the, like she already had the belt, but she raised the belt. It was so fast. Like she asked us those 2 questions and then just boom, just like beat us senselessly with the belt. And it was, as you can imagine, just so painful. And it was humiliating. The blinds were open. And I remember like covering myself like this as she kept hitting me. And I looked out and I saw like all the children that some of them were still standing around, because of course the party continued to go on. But of course, like I think some of the older children knew we were like in trouble or being like punished. Pardon me, my battery died. Bueno, I'm charging it, so I'll be fine. Anywho, so I was in the middle of saying that we were being like punished. We were just being, my sister and I were being brutally beaten with a belt by my foster mother. She was just going crazy on us with the belt, and just shouting things like, I better not ever see, you know, black people. I don't know why that's like, they like to, you know, I've seen like comedians make jokes about that, but to me it's not really funny. It's it's not really funny to me, but it's very real. It's very true that they tend to, like, you know, speak to you while, like, they're rapping, you know, I better not ever see you, and it's just like, please stop. Like, you're only making it worse, you know, and tiring yourself out, I guess. Like, but that's what they would do. They would just be like, or that's what she would do. She would always, like, lecture us in the midst of beating us, as if we're, like, actually paying attention, you know. But yeah, she just told us, like, she better not ever see us dance like that ever again. And after hitting us, I don't know, probably like 50 times, maybe more than 50 times. Like, it was for minutes that she beat us like that. Like, my arms were sore because it's Miami, so it's hot and we're outside, so more than likely, like, I was wearing a dress, or, like, you know, a sleeveless shirt and, like, some shorts or something like that. And my skin, like, my arms were so sore after she got done beating me. I don't know about my sister. I didn't ask her, like, ¿Cómo te sientes, girl? Like, how do you feel? But I just remember what I thought was, like, so sick is that she made us go right back outside. Like, after all the children could look through the window and see us being beaten like that, she actually thought that we would want to go return to the party, like, lips quivering and us shaking. Like, because when you're beaten, you know, I guess for those who don't know, like, when you're beaten, like, your body is already, like, in such an alarmed state. Like, my heart rate was probably beating so fast, or so accelerated. I mean, my heart was probably beating so fast, like, the entire time. And then to just be told, like, okay, go back outside, like, and tell them what, like, go back outside and be like, oh, like, the sun is so, like, bright today. It's sick. It's psychotic to me, actually. Like, but I just did as I was told, just to avoid being, like, beaten and yelled at even more. And I didn't want to dance after that anymore. And the reason I titled the poem How I Learned to Stand Still is because I love music. So I'm going to try not to cry. I love music so much, like, so much. I'm a songwriter, like, through and through. Like, I probably always will be. Like, I started writing songs when I was in second grade. I write all the time. I come up with songs all the time. I love music. I love how music sounds, like, on, like, different stereos and radios. I don't listen to the radio at all, but I mean, like, on different devices, like a Bluetooth speaker versus headphones versus your phone. Like, music sounds so different, and I pay attention to it. Like, I don't know. I think I'm, like, sonically gifted or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I love music so much. And after that experience, I learned, that's why it's called How I Learned to Stand Still, because what it taught me was that what her abuse, as a response of me just, like, dancing, instead of just explaining to me that that's inappropriate, that ladies don't dance like that, like, instead of giving me the insight and the knowledge, she chose to give me trauma. And what it taught me, as I say in the poetry, I mean in the poem, is that like, I could cause a commotion with my body. In fact, I think I'll find I want to find the way that I said it, because I said it so eloquently. It's on page 24. It says, so with fear on your face and rage in your mouth, you drag me inside, take off your belt, and teach me how not to dance. You tell me that I am too young to move that way. This is how I learned to express myself with words. You said if I used my body, it would cause a commotion, that the others would see me move and get the wrong idea. So when you throw a birthday party, I stand still under the sunrise. I tell the others how much I love the music instead of showing them. How I learned to stand still. And by the way, I say that you said this, but she didn't actually say those words. I'm speaking poetically, and metaphorically. So I'm saying, through her abuse, she was telling me those things. Like, I internalized that. For example, like, that if I move my body and I express myself in that way, that is gonna cause a commotion. You know, she didn't actually, like, explain that to me. She just brutalized me and then sent me back outside as if I would understand, like, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. I just did what, like, any small child, any kindergarten age children surrounded by older children, you're going to be influenced by them. I'm not saying the older children should have been beaten. The older children's parents probably should have taught them years ago that booty popping is not appropriate. Maybe people shouldn't have booty popping and twerking, twerk some girl, twerk some girl. Well, maybe that shouldn't be in the music. The problem is larger than anything I did as a child, because this kind of rhetoric and these kind of examples shouldn't even be put out there. Maybe go put that stuff behind some NSFW, not safe for work, paywall, and all of that adult content, all that perverted stuff can be seen behind the paywall or something like that. Instead, they put it in the so-called music. They put it in the music videos. They put it in the television. They put all this adult content, if you will, all this perverted stuff out there, and then beat the children and blame the children for being influenced, as if they don't understand how influence works. It usually comes from the people who are older making an impression on the people who are younger and gullible. And it's like, for her to be a middle-aged woman and not know that. This is what I'm saying. The problem with people not having developed but having custody of children, like, it's an epidemic, because it's like, you need to go process and learn about life, do some self-work, do some self-development, and maybe, like, stay away from children if you don't understand how to properly guide and teach them, because teaching me with a belt is not going to do anything. All it did was traumatize me, so much so. And I made this connection. I learned to stand still. I connect this poem to something else that happened, like, years later. I remember I was doing it really quickly because my videos are always so long. Dios mío. Anyway, so I had to do a job. I worked for someone when I was 19. I had 2 jobs. I worked a retail job and I worked for someone in, like, private security. So I had to do a job for my boss, the private security boss, and he hired some other person who was also Caribbean. I think he was, like, Jamaican. So yeah, he hired another Caribbean person, and, like, he had the both of us packing up stuff in his office and stuff, because we were going to relocate his items to another office space, I believe. So we were there, and the Caribbean dude, he was playing dancehall music, which typically, like, Jamaicans, like, they typically love dancehall. Not all, but yeah, I mean, it comes from Jamaica. So he was playing, like, dancehall music, and he played this song. He played a song by Alkaline, and I'm not too familiar with Alkaline because I'm, like, French and Hispanic Caribbean, so I, like, naturally, like, prefer, like, bachata, and, like, I like zouk and compa, like, Aisha music, So I knew, like, a few, like, dance hall songs, because I've always had, like, foreign friends, West Indian friends, other Caribbean Latinos like me, and then Caribbeans who are not Latino. So I knew a little bit of, like, dance hall, but not really that much. Just, like, the Broke It Down song, like, I knew that one and whatnot. So he played that song, and I recognized I'm like, is this Alkaline? He was like, oh, you know Alkaline? I was like, a little bit. And I said, he's like, oh, what do you know? And I told him this song. I don't think I'm gonna say it, because once I, like, got older, I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, this stuff is so, like, explicit and appropriate. So anyhow, I'm not gonna even say the song, but I told him the song that I knew. And he was like, oh, you know that song? Like, you like that song? And I was like, yeah, I like the beat. I like, like, some of the melodies, whatever. Just telling him what I like about the song. And so he played it for me. He's like, oh, okay, I got you. So then he played it, he put it in the queue, and we were still, like, packing up the office, and then the song came on, and it's like, dun, dun, dun. So they may have given it away for some people, but it starts like, dun, 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 ooh, na, na. Anywho, and I was immediately like, oh my God, like, on the inside, like, internally, I was like, oh my gosh, because it just brought me back to, like, memories, dancing with my Jamaican friend and stuff like that, like, at this event. So anywho, immediately I was just like, oh my gosh. And I wanted to dance, like, my Caribbean hips, like, I just wanted to dance so bad. But I stood there and I was, like, frozen in time. And he was looking at me. This is like a man. Like, I was a girl. I was like 19. This is like some guy, I think like in his late 20s or early 30s probably. So like, I definitely wasn't gonna shake my hips in front of like a man, because I didn't want him to look at me in that kind of way, you know. But I also was just uncomfortable like moving because of, like I said, this moment in time, all those years back, being beaten just for like dancing, like just casually, innocently dancing. It crippled me, and I didn't even realize and connect like how all these years later I still was so crippled by that moment, until someone played a song that, like, if I were by myself, I would, you know, dance like nobody's watching, right? Like, dance how I really wanted to, but I could not. I just couldn't. I was frozen. I was just standing there. He was staring at me like he was waiting for me to like react. Like, he's like, "I'm playing your song, girl," and I'm like, "I know, but like I cannot like allow myself." And it's not that I have. It's that's the thing about trauma. Like it's so true. How the book The Body Keeps Score, which I still need to read. I've just heard things about it, but it's like it stays in your body. The traumatic energy, it stays with you. Like, I there was nothing like physically stopping me from dancing. I didn't have the fear that my foster mom was going to come out from the shadows and like, you know, beat me senselessly. But the damage of her doing that for so long, it crippled me to the point where like I said, if no one was around, I would have, okay. If no one was around, when no one is around, right? I That's when I dance like nobody's watching. But I just couldn't. I could not. And I remember I felt like so awkward because I was like frozen. Like, when I say frozen, I mean I just stood there. And I couldn't even, like, I won't even hum in front of people typically. That's how bad it is. Like, and I'm a songwriter. I literally like make music for fun. Like, I write songs for fun and for like a therapeutic release. But it's like, once other people are around, like anything that has to do with music, like I will not sing in front of people. I will not dance in front of people. Like, I can't even, it's not that I can't, it's I won't. I can. I know physically that I can, but it's like there's a block or something. Like, I think it's the traumatic energy. And that's just in my body still, because it's like what am I afraid of? You know, like, okay, they may laugh at me or something. I don't care. In reality, I don't care. It's the, I don't know. I think maybe all the abuse, and maybe even like, well, yeah, the verbal abuse and the physical abuse, and I mean, just, yeah, all the forms of abuse, that the attacks on my body has kind of made me like, or not kind of, it has made me uncomfortable, like in my skin. Even though I know there's nothing wrong with me, even though I know there's nothing wrong like with my body, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's weird to me, but it's crippling and it's frustrating to me. It's weird because it's like I know in my mind that like nothing is wrong with me, but I don't know. I keep saying I don't know because I'm still on that journey of like trying to understand like what is stopping me. If I know that like I'm okay to dance, like why won't I just dance, you know? And no, I'm not the kind of person like where if someone would be like, "Oh, you just need some tequila." No, I don't need tequila, because like when I'm by myself, I don't need tequila. I don't want tequila anyway, but it's like, it's not that I need alcohol. I don't need any external substances. There's something internal that has to shift for me to unlock or like eradicate the blockade that is crippling me, so that when I'm in the store, like I've been like in the store with people and I've heard a song that I really like, and I just want to, you know, I just want to like do what I would do if no one were to be around me in the moment. But I don't know. I just won't do it. I don't know. But I really hope to see myself evolve, like from and like grow past that finally. But anywho, that's why the poem is called How I Learned to Stand Still, because that's what I do. When the music plays, I stand still. Even though like I've had moments like I've gone to like I didn't go to parties in high school because like I didn't want to end up like, you know, the girls who end up, you know, with horror stories and stuff like that. Like I just don't trust people like that. So I didn't go to parties, but I went to gatherings where like I knew all the girls and we were going to be at someone's house, and like the parents would take me home afterwards, like, you know, where I felt safe. So I've been to like gatherings like where I've been the DJ, because I've got like amazing, if I do say so myself, I got amazing music taste, like quite a variety and stuff like that. So I would like dance amongst like other girls and stuff like that, and they would always be like, oh my gosh, Star, you can dance, like you can dance so well. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. They're like, well, you have rhythm, you can dance. So I know, like, it's not like I've only got like one, you know, like I have rhythm. I'm Caribbean, you know, so I have, you know, rhythm. I have, like I said, I'm sonically gifted, I'm musically gifted, but it's like, it's just fear, shyness, you know. I'm a shy girl, truth be told, like underneath it all, even though none of my friends would ever say that I'm shy. Like, people who know me, they're like, you're not shy, but I am. I am just a little bit. Anywho, I'm gonna move on because this, I probably took so long with that story, but yeah, it's one of the things I really like need to grow past, or grow from, you know. And it's another reason why I'm so against like the normalization of like beating children, because it's not, if it's not okay to, for adults, if no adult, like no woman would say it's okay for her man to beat her, no man would say it's okay for his woman to beat him. Oh yeah, my wife beat me today. Like, what? That's outrageous. Like, no one would be okay with that. But then when it comes to children, the most precious, vulnerable, defenseless beings in our society, that's where people are like, well, yeah, they need to get their ass beat sometimes. You need to get your ass beat sometimes. You know, it's just wretched. And I'm so against it because, like, I know, I've lived, I feel the way that it cripples you. Years and years later, I'm in my 20s now. That happened to me probably when I was 20 years ago. Right? And I still have found myself like crippled by it and uncomfortable in my skin, but due to other things as well. Anywho, I'll move on from that. But yes, so all in all, my foster mother was abusive to us. Like I said, it was regular for her to round us up and abuse us in that way. And then the jumping jacks was like a frequent thing. Of course, sometimes I would think, instead of her beating us, I would prefer to just make us do the jumping jacks, you know. But it's not like I ever got it to say. I do recall her telling me one time, like, when she made us bend over the couch and she stripped our pants and like beat us. Later on, sometimes she would have us bring a glass for her. I don't know. I don't know if my sister remembers this, but I remember her telling us to go pour like she loved brandy. She loved brown liquor. And I remember her telling us to go get a glass of her brown liquor for her. That's how I know what it is, brandy, because I remember her telling us. I remember her giving us a sip one time. I think it was of wine, and I wanted to try it because I remember in the church they always talk about wine, like the little like ritual thing that they do where you drink the grape juice and you have the little cracker, and that's supposed to be like the blood of Jesus, and like the it's really sick, you know. It's really weird and sick. But anywho, I remember she had like wine with her friends, and I remember I was like, I want some, and she was like, no, you don't. I was like, yes, I do. And she was like, oh, you think that you want some? And she was like, here, try it. And she told me, just take a sip, only a sip of it. And I took a sip and I made my face like, and she was like, yeah, you don't want any. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want any. That's what I'm saying. I've never liked alcohol. I've never had a taste for alcohol. Maybe it's partly because she did that to me, but I think it's deeper than that. It's because I saw like what it did to people, you know, and including her. Anywho, she would tell me to bring her like brown liquor sometimes. I remember or bring like a glass or something for her. So I remember one time she told me to bring like a glass or something for her. And I remember when I came up to her room and I gave it to her, she told me, she's like, you know, Ma doesn't want to beat you. Ma doesn't want to hit you. And I was like, I know, Ma. And she was like, you got to stay away from the other kids. Like when they're doing bad things, stay away from them so Ma doesn't have to beat you, okay? And I was like, yeah, okay, Ma. It's fucking sick. It's just sick to me. It's like, that's manipulation. You don't have to beat children. It's sick to me. But anywho, another thing she would make my sister and I do, and I think she would make us do this because we were the foster children and we were young. she would make us give her pedicures. I'm not necessarily putting that in the same category as forcing us to do jumping jacks, forcing foster girls to, drink their own vomit or eat dog food and all these severe things that she did to us. However, I do think that that's like exploitation of minors, and I do think that it's wrong. Like, if you like, girl, go make your grandson digging your toenails and stuff like that. Don't make me do that, right? But she would make us do these pedicures for us. I remember one time I accidentally, like, I think I dug, because she would have all this white stuff like crust under, maybe it's normal for everyone too, but she would have like a lot of this crust under her toenails. So one time I was digging under the toenail because I always, I didn't want to get in trouble, so I tried to do like the best that I could. And I remember jumped back because I guess I did it too hard, and she like threatened me. Like, she told me like if I'm not careful, she would hit me. And I'm like, we're not even supposed to be doing this, girl. Like, I'm not even, like, I'm not licensed, I'm not of age. Like, this is not okay. Like, I shouldn't be doing pedicures on like an adult, like a middle-aged woman. I truly believe she only made us do that because we were completely under her control and we didn't have parents to, be around and supervise or anything like that. And that's what I'm saying. The adults in this world are sick. Not all, obviously, but the adults are the problem, in my opinion, because integrity is so lost amongst these people. And what I've found in my testimony, in my journey, integrity is so lost amongst adults. Integrity is doing the right thing, especially when no one is looking. Not just even when, but most especially. You have no integrity if when no one is around, you don't do the right thing. And for an adult, like I said, middle-aged woman to make children do something like give her pedicures, like full blown. I mean, the whole, filing, buffing, painting, the whole shebang. And it's like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And you are only making me do this because my parent or my birth parents are thousands of miles away and no one is here to advocate for me. And in my journey, with all the adults that I ended up with and who had some type of supervision or guardianship over me or rights over me, that was the pattern. That was the same thing I found. Like, these people who exploited me chapter after chapter, year after year, all throughout my childhood, into my teenage or my adolescence, until the end of it. I found myself in the hands of adults who exploited me and exploited the fact that there was no one around to defend me. No one around. I think that says something about the adults, says something about the people in the society. Anywho. So my my foster mother had an adult daughter, as I've mentioned before. Her daughter was, I believe, in her 30s or something like that, but 35-ish, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger. I'm not really sure. But nonetheless, she was in her 30s, I believe, like maybe 36, 37. And occasionally she would beat us. I did mention this in the previous episode. She would beat us sometimes, but most especially she would beat us when her mother wasn't around. So she would come home from work and she would just be in a bad mood. Like, I don't know what happened to her. I'm not sure, but she would just take it out on us, and she was just always angry. Like, that's why, like, the trope of when people say that the angry black woman is a stereotype, all stereotypes have truth to them. Not all black women are angry, and of course all African American people, or they want to be called Black American people, have every right to be angry about the collective status of their people and their community. They have themselves, I think, to blame largely, right? And then, of course, they have the collective of, colonizers, white supremacists, Caucasians, and what they have done to the African American people, the Africans turned coloreds, turned Negroes, turned African American, turned Black people. For generations and generations, that collective, the African American / Black American collective, has been brutalized and oppressed by the collective Caucasian colonizer class, and there's no disputing that. But what I've witnessed and what I've observed is that, or in my opinion as well, Black American people they pull each other down. They don't like each other, don't treat each other well collectively, don't think high enough of each other, don't trust each other, don't invest into each other, by far and large. And therefore, I understand there are a lot of reasons why Black American people individually will have, not all obviously, but some have a bit of anger and tension. And you can sense it, you can see it in the way that they speak, you can see it in the way that they conduct themselves, the way they speak about themselves, how they call themselves, like derogatory terms and stuff like that. However, when it comes to the stereotype of the angry Black woman, I think there's two sides. On one side, yes, Black American women have everyone has every right to be angry, but they have so many reasons to be angry. However, I think the stereotype of the angry Black woman, there's like a caveat to it. There are some women, some people, Black people, it shows up differently on the men and the women. There are some Black American women who have like a bad attitude and just are aggressive and rough and mean. And it's not, I don't know that in their, like, I don't know in their minds if it's connected to all that they have suffered from. Like, if they have made that connection and therefore they're walking around with all that roughness and aggression because of that, or if it's just that there are things happening in their personal life that they have not processed. Therefore, they have this wall, they have this tension, they have this aggression, and they don't like reserve it for some people or situations where it is justified or where it is warranted. Whereas instead what they will do is just be aggressive to like all people, like for no reason. And that's the stereotype that I think it would be wise for them to move away from instead of fall into. And unfortunately, I've just come across like far more Black American women, and even the girls, like growing up in school and stuff like that and working and stuff like that. I've just come across so many who meet that stereotype, and I feel bad for them because it only does them a disservice. It's like people are already expecting you to be aggressive for no reason, and it just doesn't serve most of us to fall into stereotypes, to live down to, as opposed to like living up to, to live down to the negative stereotypes that plague our communities as brown skinned people as a whole, right? As opposed to like rising above them, right? And defying the odds placed against you. It's unfair, obviously, but it's also just, it's really sad to me that for a portion of the collective, it is true that there is this angry Black woman. And like, just a case in point, I remember in this place I used to live in this apartment, there was, not in my apartment, excuse me, in the apartment above my apartment, there was a Black American family that was there for a bit of time. And I remember like the Black American woman would yell at her children. These small girls that were probably like, one was probably 4, the other one was probably 5. Like, these are babies. And I remember one morning, I almost called them folks, as they say, I almost called like children and family services on her. As someone who's gone through that kind of stuff, I'm cautious, right? Because I understand it's traumatic to be taken away from your family. But like I said, there's a lot of parents who shouldn't have any children. This woman at the start of the morning was yelling at the top of her lungs at her children. And she was like, pardon me, but she's like, I can't stand y'all motherfuckers. And it's like, who yells at their children like that? Like, I had to say pardon me because my voice rarely gets that loud, like rarely, right? I'm so zen, right? And I choose to be, right? I couldn't imagine, like, if I have to speak like that around anyone, I don't want you around me. I do not want to be like that's crazy to me, to have to ever speak to anybody like that. Like, just get away from those people. Obviously, in this case, I'm referring to her children. She was like talking to her children like that. She cannot, just get away from them. But it's also like, just don't have them. If you don't have them, like, children are going to annoy you. You should prepare for that ahead of time. And if your response is calling your children motherfuckers, like, are you serious? Like, that doesn't work. That's how the young, and I realized, like, I empathize so much with those little girls. I remember I was taking out my trash and I saw them and I was like, hi, how are you? But I felt so sad for, las niñas, because I was just like, with a mother like that, that I know what they're going to amount to. More than likely, they're going to be the girls that go to school, the black girls that go to school and bully all the other black girls, all the other brown skinned girls, just because they feel insecure, just because they can't keep up academically. And it's largely because of how they're being treated at home. Like, it came so full circle to me. I was bullied relentlessly by black American girls every single year, no matter what school I went to. Didn't matter what school. I was always bullied by the same types of girls. And I realized that more than likely what all those girls had in common is that they had a mother who probably fell into the stereotype of an angry black woman, a mother who was very aggressive, very rough, and very mean. And she probably was that way because she was dealing with maybe a bad man. Well, get away from that man. Don't have children with that man, right? But that you have no excuse to take it out on people who didn't do any of that to you. But it's unfortunately like just not the world that we live in, and not the choice that people make to go heal from and process what they go through. But to have your mother like yell at you, and what's crazy, like I realize when people tell me like I'm like I don't know, like amazing and like a miracle or something, because I had a pretty wretched mother as well. My birth mother was severely abusive to me, like very, very abusive to me, verbally, physically. But I didn't go around, calling people mother effers, and I didn't go around like bullying other children and stuff like that. So I guess that's why people call me rare, because I guess usually the what people tend to do is just perpetuate their circumstances. Well, I didn't want to be a part of that collective. But I understand after that experience, and even growing up with my foster mothers, I'm connected back to what I was originally talking about. But yeah, even growing up with my foster mother's daughter, that woman, like how she would just come home and beat her sons. It's like, and then when your sons grow up and they're chasing after white girls, telling the lie that, oh, white women are more submissive, please, please. Telling the lie that, oh, white women are more submissive, and I hate black girls. What did Kodak say? What did he say? Nah, black girls together. Black girls together. White girls, we could break them down more easily. That's what he said in that interview with that brown skin muchacha. That's what he said. It's just about control, and the idea that they are weaker than us because they are raised to be weaker, and we are raised to be very strong. And so I will say, like I said, there is a caveat to the whole stereotype. I do think that part of the aggression and the roughness that some black American women have and black girls have, it comes from being in defense mode all the time. However, I think that you still have to learn to direct that energy where it is due, because a lot of that energy, I think, is warranted to be directed towards their men, because it is their men typically that they're in hostile situations with. I remember having to walk past the barber shop, having to walk past corner stores, and it was always black American men, always black American men standing around on the corner idle. Everybody else is at work and they're standing on the corner. I don't know why. My Caribbean people, my Caribbean Latino people, the Hispanic people, like all of us, our people are at work, right? And the Africans, we know they're at work. We know they're in the universities, excelling, and we know they're at work. The Southeast Asians, we know they're at work, okay? All they do is come over here and work, right? We know everybody else is at work. And of course, there are some black men who are at work, but for whatever reason, doesn't matter what city, what suburb, what town, you will find a pocket and collective of black American men standing there like on the corner. And I wholeheartedly understand and have experienced how when you are the little girl who has to walk past all those men and they're like, hey little mama, hey little mama, hey little mama, all that stuff, nasty. It's nasty. It's perverted and it's nasty. How they sit there and they watch you, watch your booty, watch all the little girls, watch our booties and stuff. I understand how that would make you angry. I understand how that would make it hard for any girl, especially brown skinned girls, to crack a smile or have anything to smile about. I was right there with them, not smiling, right? But like I said, I also didn't arrive at the school and then start bullying everyone who looked like me. That's something that needs to change, because the unfortunate reality is that when you're a brown skinned person in the United States, you're typically going to be targeted by other brown skinned people. White people are very passive, right? Like my friend told me years ago, this Black American girl, she said, I don't fight white girls because white girls don't fight with their hands, they fight with the law, as you should too. The law is not, maybe we think or we're told that it's only for them because it's created by them, but in the fine print it doesn't say this law is only for white constituents. No, it says the law is for anyone who's a citizen. Girl, utilize that citizenship, preserve your pretty face, and go fight with the law too, right? But anywho, that's for another time. I just like I empathize. I understand that the anger is warranted, like when it comes to some things, because of course nobody wants to trade places with brown skinned people. These other people, these non-brown people, they want our swag, they want our style, they want our essence, our divinity, our aura, aura for aura. They want our pizzazz. They want what we possess, our essence and what have you, but they would never want to trade places with us. That's why they go get a tan and then they wipe it off, right? They wash it off. They don't really want to be us. They go get our braids and then they take it out, right? They don't, everybody knows that anywhere in the world, anywhere, if you have a globe, spin that globe and point to any place. Close your eyes and point to any place on that globe. I bet you in that society and in all the others, the brown skinned people, the darker skinned people are treated the worst. Nobody wants to trade places with us because they know how their people behind closed doors and sometimes openly, how they speak about us. But what's worse than that is how we think of how little we think of ourselves and how we treat ourselves and how typically brown skinned people target one another so comfortably. It's gotta stop. But anywho, I didn't mean to go on that much. I just, I'm gonna say what I have to say, okay? So if you're gonna be here for a while, or if you're gonna be here, know you're gonna be here for a while. Anywho, so yeah, the angry Black woman. She was literally the stereotype or the stereotypical angry Black woman, just angry all the time, beating. From what I remember, just her being very violent, her beating her children. I have a story. I'm gonna tell the story. Keep looking at the clock. I'm trying to be aware of the time. I have a story. And I'll get to this. Connects to my sister as well. This is all part under the same umbrella of abuse. So, like I said, their mother, the mother of the 4 grandchildren of my foster mother, was very abusive. And like I said, she would come home and she would beat her children like senselessly. Now, her 2 younger sons had a habit of peeing in the bed. For those of you who don't know, typically when children have a habit of peeing in the bed, it is a sign of trauma. I was severely abused and abused in different ways. By the time I was transferred to my birth parents' custody, I had witnessed so much trauma. Hurricane Katrina, which is a natural disaster that is traumatic. Even babies can endure trauma from natural disasters, even if they have no recollection from it, because the body still experiences it. So yeah, I experienced a natural disaster, different forms of abuse, the trauma of family separation, being separated from my biological mother, like all of that, is trauma, right? Or traumatic. So again, by the time I was transferred to my birth parents' custody, I had experienced so much trauma that I began like wetting the bed. So my guess is that the grandsons were peeing in the bed because something traumatic had happened to them. And I think also just being severely beaten by their grandmother and their mother caused the trauma, right? Anywho, there was a situation where my biological sister in the foster home, we had been like severely beaten by their mother, by our foster mother's daughter one day. And my sister had decided like she had had enough of us being beaten, just because like the boys would do something and she would just like grab the belt and start hitting all of us like while we're sitting down, just like hitting our face, hitting our arms, hitting our neck, like just hitting us all over our bare skin, just like crazy, just angrily and just recklessly. So my very vindictive sister came up with a plan. I'm trying to tell this story very quickly. So she came up with a plan and she decided that she was going to use their I don't know what I would call it, but use the fact that they pee in the bed against them, right? No, it's not a weakness. I don't want to say use their weakness against them, but use, like, I don't know, their ailment or something, I'm not sure, but use whatever they would get in trouble for, like, use it against them. She had the idea to pee in a water bottle and spread the urine all over their sheets before their mother came home, so that when their mother came home, she would smell the urine and then she would get upset at them and they would get in trouble. And I guess she came up with that idea because that she wouldn't beat us for them peeing in the bed, but like anything else that they did, like if they were watching TV and not like their homework wasn't done, I don't know, like we all would get beaten. Like she would just beat us all only when her mother wasn't around though. So anywho, my sister decided to come to, she created that idea and she came to me and she was like, oh my God, like we're gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. And so she told me like, we're gonna do that. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that because like I said, my foster mother told me, stay away from the other children so I don't have to beat you. So I was just like, well, one, that's nasty and I'm not gonna do that. And my sister tormented me. I'll get to that in a moment. So I didn't want anything to do with her shenanigans. So she was like, okay, just come on so you can like keep watch. So she took a water bottle. I don't even know where she got the water bottle from, but she got the water bottle and she took it and she went to their bed. And I remember it so vividly. She crouched over the water bottle and she peed into it. And it was like nasty to me. And then she put the water bottle by me and she was like, here. And I was like, no. Like, and I lied to her. I just told her I can't. But I just, I didn't want to. And I just told her, like, I felt like if I told her I don't want to, she would just like bully me and threaten me. Because that's how she treated me. She would just bully me and threaten me. So I just told her I can't. Like, I don't have to pee. I can't. And she was like, oh, like she was frustrated, but she knew she had to be fast. So she peed in the water bottle. She accepted that I didn't want to. And then, like, I got off of the bed. She got off the bed. And she just started on the other bed. Like, she spread it on, like, one bed in particular, I believe. So I was, like, on the other bed. So I got off of the other bed that she was on in case she was going to spread on there, too. And I just was trying to get away from their it wasn't a bedroom, but just that area, like, by the deep freezer where their beds were. And their beds were literally on the other side of a wall that was part of their mom's room. So their mother literally slept like 2 feet away from them, 3 feet away from them. Like it was all like it was, close quarters because it was a very small basement. So she began like spreading the urine all over their sheets and stuff. And my sister has like a very vindictive laugh. I was just about to do it, but I'm not even gonna embarrass myself like that. But it was so like maniacal, it was so evil. Like she was just like, like with the urine, like really mad scientist-esque type stuff, like creepy and like weird. So she took the bottle and she's like, with the urine. Disgusting. And she was just laughing, like her evil laugh that she has. And I just remember, backing up from the room or the area because I didn't want anything to do with that. I was so scared that the boys would come downstairs, but I think they were outside or something like that. She chose like a wise time to do what she did. So anywho, as expected, their mother came home and I remember their mother was like, and it was outrageous. The smell, the intensity, the stench of the urine is outrageous, like outrageous. So of course, like the whole area smelled like urine. So their mother came downstairs, she smelled it, and immediately she started screaming their names, calling them. She grabbed the belt, as per usual, because I guess words don't work. Counseling is not an idea in the mind of such an individual. So she just grabbed the belt and, her sons came downstairs and they started crying. They already knew like that they were going to get in trouble. And just from the tone of her voice yelling. And of course, as you would imagine, she just started beating her children. And I remember like my sister was on her bunk bed and she was just like, like laughing, like snickering and stuff. And I just remember I felt so bad. I was glad I didn't do anything, but I still felt really bad for them because I was like, even though he abused me and we always got in trouble for what they did, I still felt like it was always wrong for them to hit us the way that they not hit, abuse us. Like I would have just rather someone just a quick, don't you ever do that again, But no, instead, like we were being brutalized in that house, and it just didn't feel right to hear them like screaming and hollering for something that they didn't do, even though that was us all the time. Like, it was fair, I guess, like, you know, an eye for an eye if you have that kind of mindset, which in some cases I absolutely do. Like, I can be like that. But, like, I guess in her mind, like, it's fair, it's justified because we always got in trouble for the things that they did. But even though our hands were clean, so she was just like doing that, I guess, to make them feel what we felt. But it's like no one really learned a lesson, you know, like it didn't actually solve anything. So, and it was just nasty on her part too. Um, but that leads me to, I'll get to the part with my sister. Um, my sister tormented me, as I said. My birth sister, she was the only sibling in the home who I was actually biologically connected to. And like I said before, you would think that we would be so close, but no, we were not. We were not close at all because she just, I don't know. I think she just didn't like me. I think she just never liked me. If I were to go deeper than that, I would say that maybe, here's what I think. I think that she knew about our birth parents, and I think that it was painful for her. We've never talked about this. I don't, I like stay away from her. But I think that it was painful for her to watch her little sister like embrace. I loved my foster mother. Like, I really did. Like I said in the previous episode, I clung to her. She was, I mean, the only person I felt like I had a real bond with. The other kids were older than me. The boys, like I said, like we always got in trouble. We always got in trouble for the things that they did, so I stayed away from them. And then I was sexually abused by one of them, so I just definitely stayed away from like boys altogether. And yeah, I felt like my foster mother was the only person I had in the home. So I clung to her, and I really loved her. And I think that it was painful for my biological sister to watch me. I don't know, maybe she thought I was a traitor or something. Like, I think it was hard for her to watch me like embrace that woman and be like, "Oh, Ma, like Ma said this and Ma gave me this." Like, and then maybe there was a little bit of like jealousy because I was a newborn child. And obviously newborns get a lot of attention. Like, we need to get attention when we're newborns. And then I think, you know, I've heard that when children are toddler age and a woman has another child, it can breed resentment within the toddler, feelings of jealousy and like feelings of abandonment. Understandably so, because a toddler literally needs so much attention, and it's just not smart. In my opinion, it's just not smart. It's very selfish. If you have a toddler and you decide to get pregnant, and like now you have another child that needs even more of your attention, because what about the toddler? Like, just pace yourself. You know, what's the rush? Like, I completely empathize with any like child in that kind of situation, because children need your attention the whole time that they are in your custody, the whole time that they are, you know, in that stage of child development. And I think that, for, like I said in the previous episode, for selfish reasons, people would decide to bring children into this world and not think long term, not think of the impacts, not think of the effects, and maybe lie to themselves as well, and say, well, I think I can manage, or like between me and their dad, like I think we can give them enough time. And it's like, okay, if you think so, but like it's already been studied and documented that, you know, the toddlers really do go through in some cases, you know, or they're more prone to, in most cases, go through feelings of abandonment. And I think that maybe my sister did. Like I said, we've never spoken about this. She was always like terrible to me. When we were transferred to our birth parents' custody, the bullying and the tormenting only like worsened and continued. So I can only imagine that that's what the reason was, or that is the reason that she was like just always mean to me. She just didn't like me. I think it could do with colorism as well. Like, I am lighter than some of my siblings and lighter than her. And I think that maybe, possibly, I have no recollection of this, but possibly she was treated worse than me because she is darker. And like I just said, dark skinned people get treated the worst. Like, you know, and by brown skinned people, you know, and by fair skinned people, right? So I think maybe there's some of that there. I don't know. I think maybe she just resented me. She just resented me. I don't know why. I just know what. And what I know is that she just took every opportunity to like threaten me. Okay, I'll give an example. Like I said earlier, we were often treated like we were twins. So if I got something, she had to get the same thing too. So I remember one time. So I remember that each of us were given a chapstick, and the chapstick flavors were grape and watermelon, I think, or strawberry water, or no, I think the one that she had was like strawberry kiwi, and I think the one that I had was like the grape one, like that someone gave us. Like we didn't choose these flavors; they just gave it to us. And I remember, or I think maybe she had the grape one and I had the strawberry kiwi one. Either way, I just remember that she told me that I had to give her the one that I had, and I didn't want the one that she had, like the grape. I don't typically like grape, grape flavored anything. So I didn't then, and I don't now. So I didn't want the grape one, but she wanted the one that I had, and she was like, she told me to give it to her, and I said no, I don't want to. And oh, I remember what happened now. Okay, so there's something I left out. So me being a child, like every bit of a child, we were given flavored chapstick, right? So what I did is I put the chapsticks, I tried both of the flavors on my lips, and I took a small bite of the chapstick. And I think she was like in another room or something like that. She came downstairs and she saw like my little bite marks, my little teeth marks on the chapstick, like so innocent. And she was like, oh my gosh. Like, she was so mad. She's like, what did you do? She's like, I'm going to tell Ma. I'm going to tell Ma. And like, she was abusive. So I started pleading with her. And I was like, please, please, no, please, please. And she was like, nope, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to tell her you ate my chapstick. And I was like, it was just a bite. It was just one bite. Like, it was literally like teeth marks. Like, I just scraped it with my tooth. It was not like a huge offense of any sort. But she threatened me with the abuse of my foster mother. And so I was like pleading. Like I literally almost got down on my knees to plead with her and tell her like, please don't, because I was just so scared. And she was like, okay, fine, but you're gonna give me your chapstick too. And it's just because she wanted my chapstick. Like when I say she was vindictive, like vindictive. I can't stress it enough. Right? So of course I obliged. I gave her my chapstick, and I remember later on we had to go upstairs, I think for like dinner or something like that. And the friend that gave us the chapstick asked like, oh, like, do you like your chapstick? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, like, well, let me see, where is it? And I was like, oh, I left it downstairs, because I didn't want to tell my sister and get in trouble. I was like put in situations a lot like that, like with that sister in particular, like over time, where it's like they like her and my other sister, and I'll get to this story like later on, but like they would do things to me, and then I had to choose between like like getting in trouble for lying, or telling the truth, and then having them bully me behind closed doors. And it started with that sister in the foster home. So the lady was like, oh, let me see the chopstick, let me see. And I was like, oh, I left it downstairs, I don't have it right now. And I think my foster mother could tell that I was lying, but like she let it go. Like they let it go, because like I didn't want to like get in trouble with my sister. That same sister, as I said earlier in this video, that my foster mother didn't allow us to eat like past a certain point. We would often be downstairs in the basement where we were kept, and we would be hungry. And I said earlier that my sister developed like a quick fix for that. What I mean to, or what I'm referring to, is that unbeknownst to me, my birth sister started to sneak snacks downstairs. And what she would do to me is, like, when we would be like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm so hungry, she would wait until like the other foster girls like left the room or just weren't around, and she'd be like, hey Star, I have a Pop-Tart, or I have like cookies or something like that, right? And she'd be like, do you want some? And I would say, yeah, like I'm so hungry. and she was like, okay, then lick that wall right there. Or she would point to like a little spot on the floor, like it was like a concrete floor, like, and then at one point, like a wooden, like I said earlier, like they would put like the peel and stick wooden tiles, like the faux wood, the fake wood tiles, that you peel the adhesive back and you stick it to the floor. We had those in a portion of the basement where we would play with our toys, or like sit on the floor and play with our toys. So that flooring sometimes had like, I think it was gum, like, but I don't know, just black surfaces, like I think gum, like, or just things that stuck to the floor. And like if you walk on the floor for, you know, quite a while, then the substances turn dark from all the like dirt and grime from your shoes. So she would just pick like a dark substance on the floor and be like, okay, well, you're gonna need to lick that. Or she would sometimes lift up her armpit and she would tell me I have to lick her armpit just for a Pop Tart, right? And I was so hungry that I would pretend, I swear, I would not swear to God because I was taught in the church you're not supposed to swear to God. But God, I'll say God is my witness that I would pretend to lick, and only on a couple occasions. Most of the time I would just say no because I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to do it. But like I said, I was really, really hungry. And I was a baby, right? Like a small, like, you know, kindergarten age child. Like I needed to eat. So I would pretend. I remember like on 2 occasions, I just pretended to like lick the wall. Like I would just be like, like, but she would stand behind me and stuff like that. And I remember one time she was like, you didn't even do it. And I was like, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. And I didn't, but you know, she gave me like a little piece of the Pop Tart or whatever it was. And then there was one time in particular when she told me to lick the floor. And I remember like I outsmarted her. Like she stood over me. So I just like put my hands down, like if you're doing a push up. And I just moved my head. Like I kept my mouth closed, but I just like moved my head. And then she was like, ew, you're so nasty. And I was like, okay, please just give me the Pop Tart. I thought that she was gonna give me a full Pop Tart. Like if you don't know Pop Tarts, they're like the toaster, what do you call it? They're like not the toaster strudel, but it's like the, I think most people know what a Pop Tart is, but like for the foreigners out there, basically it's like the little thing that you put the pastry, a toaster pastry, I think is what it's called, that you put in the toaster, you put in the microwave. I used to like them when I was a child. They taste like different now, and all that stuff is just like you know, processed stuff, not good for you anyway. But yeah, anyway, back then, I used to like Pop Tarts and stuff like that, and they come with a pack of 2. That was the point I wanted to make. They come with 2, so I thought that she was gonna give me a full Pop Tart, and she only gave me literally like a piece of the corner. And after that, I was like, okay, so then anytime she tells me to do anything, like I already know she's not really going to do it. She's just like weird, you know? Like I was like, she just wants to torment me. Like she's just weird. Another time I passed gas, like I'm just telling all my business. But another time I passed gas in the tub. We always had to bathe together. So one time I passed gas in the tub. I was a baby. I was like 5. And she was like, ew. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And she was like, she was like, I'm gonna tell Ma. I'm gonna tell her that you passed gas. And I was like, no, please, please. And she went, okay, you have to do something for me. Like she was weird. That is not normal. That's what I say. Some children, yeah, may be a blessing, but I think some children have evil demonic spirits that inhabit them. I remember that movie Orphan. Okay. So and she was in that umbrella, okay, where like there's something demonic there. That's not normal for children to threaten you with your abuser, right? Like there's something like weird with her. Something was off with her, truth be told, in my humble opinion. So I don't know, she was just always weird towards me, and just apathetic towards me. So those are just some examples that I can remember off the top of my head. And then on a more serious note, before I end this, I like don't even want to talk about this, truth be told, but I'm just gonna like do a quick synopsis. I was verbally abused and I was physically abused in the foster home. And I was also sexually abused in the foster home, and I was also sexually abused in the school that I went to. When I was in kindergarten, I was literally like a victim, like documented as a victim of what is called child on child sexual assault. And just really quickly, just like, breeze through it because it's all so uncomfortable. I vaguely remember some details, but there were two boys in my kindergarten class who made me uncomfortable. My bad. So there were two boys in my kindergarten class who made me uncomfortable, and I remember when I would see them in the hallway, like over the course of the year, and even like in first grade and stuff. I remember I used to like hide behind this girl, and it's because there were two boys who had a habit of being very inappropriate. I will not speak about other things that happened that they did. What I can speak about is what they did to me. They would come up behind me and thrust their pelvic area into my backside. So basically putting their like genitals against my butt, and they would touch my area, my genitals, or my vagina basically. And I told the teacher every single time, and nothing was ever done to make them stop. I cannot and probably just will not like say much more because there's way more, but I cannot really I can only speak about the things that happened to me. Parents were notified, but nothing ever stopped. So these two Black American boys would do that to me. In the household, in the foster home, my foster brother, as I did like briefly mention in this video, also sexually abused me. And I've mentioned it in other videos on my channel. I think I have a video where I like talk about it. It's always difficult. I always end up, feeling like very gross and like I need to take a shower or something right afterwards because it's just very gross and traumatic, disgusting. And I can't even say like really quickly because it's just there's so much detail, but I will try to give a quick synopsis because it is relevant. It falls under the category of the abuse that I experienced in the foster home. And like I said in the previous episode, I absolutely think that my birth mother is, my foster mother and her negligence and her lack of consideration for our privacy as foster girls is largely like the reason for this situation that occurred. So one time all of the children were watching cartoons. I never liked cartoons. I always felt like they were like dumb. Like dumb is not like stupid. I just always felt like cartoons were like, I didn't like the, do you see the tree? Yeah. I just never liked that. I just never liked being spoken to like that. So I excused myself. I said that I wanted to go downstairs and take a nap. Unbeknownst to me, my foster brother noticed that and decided to follow me down the stairs. It wasn't immediate. I was downstairs, I was laying down in the bed, and then before I knew it, someone just got on top of me, and it turned out to be him. And immediately he just started kissing me. He got on top of me with all his body weight. He just started kissing me, and I remember like moving my head like side to side because I was just like, what is this, And he kept trying to put his tongue in my mouth. Like it's so disgusting. I remember it all too well, and I just remember like I grit my teeth because I was trying to keep his like nasty tongue out of my mouth. And he just kept trying to kiss me. He saw that I like didn't want to kiss him. He saw me like moving my head and like squirming and stuff. But no, my camera battery died, so I had to just swap it. But it's okay. It gave me a moment to just like catch my breath, take a deep breath rather. Because this is always just uncomfortable to relive and recount or to recall. Anywho, so I was in the middle of saying that he just like ambushed me. My foster brother, that is. I just remember one moment I was laying down, and then the next moment he was on top of me, and he kept trying to kiss me. That's what I remember. That's how I remember it starting with him, like with all his body weight on top of me, him trying to kiss me, me keeping my mouth like grit or my teeth grit so that I could keep him from sticking his tongue in my mouth because he did a couple of times and it was like repulsive, it's like disgusting. So while I was like squirming and stuff underneath his body weight, he like held me down with his arm, like the weight of his like left arm, and then he went and like lower onto my body and he started to pull my pants down. I really don't want to go into vivid detail and end my night like reliving this and stuff like that. So I would just like speak very generally and just move on, because I just kind of like really don't want to have these thoughts and like images in my mind for the rest of the night. But he began to perform an oral sex act on my body. And that is the last thing no, let me backtrack, because that's not the last thing I remember. So I remember him weighing me down with his arm, and I remember him going lower, pulling my pants down, and then beginning to perform a sexual act on my genitals. And I was still squirming underneath like the weight of his arm, but this is a boy who's like twice my size. He was like 12, I think in like the 7th grade. I was in kindergarten, I was 5. And just struggling to scream, struggling to say anything except for probably just, whatever sounds I made while squirming and trying to get away, while he was literally still holding me down. So in the midst of me squirming and trying to get away, I don't know, something in my spirit was like, look up. So I turned my head, and I was laying on my bunk bed, which was made out of wood, and the wood had like hearts carved into like the board where like you put your head, you put your pillows, and you put your head. So I looked through one of the hearts, and I saw that my foster sister, one of the foster girls, had come downstairs, and she saw him like on top of me. She saw him like under the cover. She saw me squirming. She saw him like doing something sexual to me. And she just crouched down. She sat there and she watched. I remember, I'll never forget the look on her face. She just licked her lips and she was smiling. And I think she was already like in high school, maybe 14, 15 at the time. And I remember her licking her lips, and like she was smiling like she found gold or something. Like she found like I don't know, like she unraveled some kind of like great mystery or something like that. Like it wasn't the look of a child who realizes that she sees something wrong. It was the look of someone who's like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to tell everybody this. And she stayed there and she watched for a bit, and I was just staring at her, and she was just staring at me and staring at him. And then she got up and she went back upstairs. And I watched her go up the stairs, and I remember like when people say their heart sank, like I know what that feels like, because I was just so devastated. I was like, why won't she, like why wouldn't she say anything? Why wouldn't she like rip the covers back and like pull him off of me? Why would she just leave me here? And I don't know, like I think I was just so frozen, like so frozen. I could not speak, I could not scream, but on the inside I was like screaming her name. On the inside I was screaming like for her to help me. And she didn't. She just went upstairs. That is the last thing I remember. I don't remember how it ended. I just remember later on at night I was laying, or I mean probably like shortly afterwards, but it was probably like nightfall. The basement had a very small window, and it was covered by trees, another violation of the law. So hardly any light came through the basement during the daytime. So maybe the sun set while that was happening, but I just remember it was dark and I was still laying there. I remember I heard someone say like, "Where is Star?" And I was downstairs crying, and I remember thinking like, I'm dirty now. Like I remember it like it's so loudly. I was like, I'm dirty now. Like now God's not gonna like me. I was like, everyone in the church is gonna think I'm dirty. Like I just kept calling myself dirty. I just kept thinking I was dirty. And I waited. I laid in the bed, I cried, and I waited for my foster mother to come to the house. And then I went upstairs and I begged her to take a shower by myself. As I just mentioned, I was always forced to shower or to bathe with my biological sister. And I begged her, like with tears in my eyes, I pled and I told her, please, like I want to shower by myself. I want to bathe by myself, please. And she kept saying no, no. And I was like, no, please, like, I just need to, I want to. And she was like, okay, fine, just this one time. And I went into the bathtub, and I was washing myself. Like I said, I felt like I was dirty. So I began like washing my genitals like profusely. Like I was just trying to get the rape residue off of me, basically. And um my vaginal hole was open, and that had never happened before. So the bar of soap that I was using to wash myself got stuck inside of my vagina. And I started screaming, because if you have a vagina, you know that you're not supposed to put soap inside your vagina. It will stink. So I started screaming, and my foster sister, whose room was right there by the bathroom upstairs, she heard me, and she came into the room in the bathroom right away. And I was screaming, screaming and crying. And I couldn't even like tell her, like, I didn't know what a vagina was. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just like pointed to the area. I told her like, there's soap, it burns, it burns. And she was like, you put soap? She's like, you're not supposed to put soap in your vagina. Like, what are you doing? So she grabbed a rag, and she used her fingers to dig out and literally scrape out all of the soap, like the pieces of the soap that had begun melting inside of my vagina. So I felt, further violated, of course, because now two people had done things to my vagina, like in less than 5 hours. So I remember she had the rag, and she was like just digging all of it out. And I remember she had this look of disgust on her face that matched like how I felt on the inside. And she was like, how did you even get that up there? And I didn't have the words to tell her what her brother had done to me. I didn't have the words. But that was it. Like, she didn't ask me any more questions. I don't know if she ever went and told her mom what happened, or her grandmother, or her mom what she suspected, if she suspected anything at all. I don't remember if anyone relayed it to my foster mother what happened. I just know that I had to go back downstairs and deal with that boy coming downstairs, going to his part of the basement, and being able to continuing to see us disrobing, continuing to see our bodies when we were forced to pull our pants down and bend over the couch. Like, I had to just lay there in the bed and be just a couple of feet away from my abuser. In addition to being abused by his mother, who was downstairs in the basement, in addition to being abused by my foster mother, in addition to being abused sexually by two boys at school, in addition to being abused and tormented by my sister. And this was all by the time I was 5 in kindergarten. All this abuse. And what made things even worse for me was not having the language, no one putting me in therapy, no one telling me like what this was. Like, I went 12 years. And that's the part that makes me cry, is that I went 12 years blaming myself, thinking I was weak, calling myself weak because I wasn't strong enough to push a 12-year-old boy off of me when I was 5. Because I didn't know how to scream, because I was raised to be a Southern girl who's not supposed to be loud, who's supposed to be obedient and well-mannered and yes ma'am and no sir. And no one ever taught me how to fight. Oh, the way I would teach my hypothetical daughter how to kick ass. No one ever taught me how to scream, how to fight. And I sat there for 12 years feeling so tormented by the rape residue of it all, and the shame and the guilt and the feelings of dirtiness. And my sister, when we were transferred to the foster home, out of the foster home to my birth parents' custody, the first day after my father told us what our chores were, when we were in the room that we were supposed to share with the sister we had just met, she said to me, she pulled me to the side and she said to me, "You're going to do all my chores for me." And I said, "No, I'm not." I was 7, she was already 9. And she said, "Yes, you are." She said, "If you don't, I'm going to tell everybody in the house that you had sex with our foster brother." I didn't even know that she knew that he had sexually abused me. That's how I know that when that girl, that foster girl, when she sat there and she crouched down and she watched that whole ordeal, she went back. Like I said, she sat there and she had a grimace. She watched like she was like, "Oh, this is tea." Like, the stupid shit that people in my generation say, "Oh, this is tea." She sat there like she found the new secret and she was going to go upstairs and tell everyone. And I believe wholeheartedly that's what she did. Because my sister and I, my biological sister and I, we never talked about that situation. I think maybe one of the reasons that she mistreated me is probably because maybe she knew about that and maybe thought that I was to blame. Maybe he did sexual things to her too, and then maybe she felt upset when she found out she wasn't the only one. I don't know. Something sick like that. I don't know, but that was almost as painful as going through the actual experience. It was horrifying and it crippled me for years. I don't trust men. I don't really, there's other reasons for that, but yeah, it just, it has been a stain, like, on my life. It's truly a stain, like, just being exposed to all that trauma and then having my body violated. Because the way I can explain it is, when someone breaks into your house, and I've survived all kinds of atrocities and stuff like that, but I'll use this example. If someone breaks into your house, that's traumatic, right? But you can pick up and you can leave your house. When someone breaks into your body, where do you go? Where do you go? When someone violates your body, where do you go? Where do you move to? You can move to another apartment. You can move to another house, another town, another city, another country, another galaxy perhaps. One day. They're working on it. But when someone violates your body, there is nowhere you can go. I think that's why a lot of people numb themselves with drugs, with alcohol, alcohol is a drug, but with vices, meaningless, reckless, irresponsible sex, or, drug consumption. It's to escape how it feels to be in their skin. Because when someone violates your body, right, then there's nowhere for you to escape. The rape residue that you live with stays with you forever. You just learn, you compartmentalize, you put it somewhere. And it takes almost a lifetime, and probably a lifetime for some of us, to ever allow yourself to, trust people and trust that you are physically, sexually, and literally, emotionally, mentally safe with someone. For that 12-year span of time, I didn't let anyone touch me. I didn't say I love you to anyone. I remember being on the phone with my friends, and I didn't have a family and my actual family members, so my friends were the closest thing I had to that. I remember sometimes I wanted to be like, "Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow, I love you," but I couldn't say it. And it's not that I'm a very loving being, but I was so uncomfortable with anything having to do with affection, expressing it, feeling it, allowing it. And like I said, largely it's because during that 12-year stretch of time, I blamed myself. I didn't have anyone to tell me what sexual assault was. And it wasn't until I was a junior in high school and I was invited someone, you know, tap me on the shoulder, like figuratively speaking, and say, hey, I know you're a poet and you write about like your life experiences. I think that you might be interested in this. Check it out. So being a, you know, I was on the school's spoken word poetry team, so I was comfortable enough to like look into anything having to do with poetry and like participate in it like junior and senior year. So there was this girl who was a senior at the time, and she unfortunately like had been the victim of sexual assault. I believe it was her brother's friend. Her brother had a party and her friend like went in, his friend went into her room and sexually abused her at this party, I believe. So she wrote a poem about the experience and the impact it had on her, and she invited, it was a brilliant idea, she invited all these girls who could relate to, you know, being sexually assaulted or knew someone who was sexually assaulted, and we all had a meeting, and every single one of us, all us muchachas in that room, had one thing in common, which was that we were girls who could say me too. We were all girls who had been sexually assaulted. And the role that we played in her project, her senior project, was to recite a line of this poem. So one by one, like we all like were filmed reciting a line from her poem. And it wasn't until I met with that girl and spoke to her one-on-one that I understood what happened to me. And it was healing. It was healing and it was therapeutic to know that I wasn't alone and to talk to so many other people, so many other girls who, you know, you don't have to say much when you start to talk about your trauma and someone has experienced it too. That's where the phrase me too is so powerful, because it's like there's power in knowing that someone else knows precisely how you feel. But it was sad. Like it was healing, but it was sad to me that all of us girls, I mean, the stories are like wretched. I heard stories that made me, I mean, I almost could not even continue with the school day hearing some of their stories. You know, to go through sexual abuse of any kind, I think it's the worst thing in the world. I truly think it's the worst thing you can experience in this world, because like I said, there is no escape. And there is no one who can tell you what you're supposed to do after it all. Even if you go kill him, even if you go kill that assailant, you may feel good for like 2 seconds, but that's not even a resolution, you know? You're expected to just move on. And when it happens to you as a child, it cripples you so much because you haven't even, it's already painful, it's already difficult. To carry it with you is already difficult. But then you haven't even gotten a chance to experience love, affection, and what it's like to have like intimacy. When your introduction to anything sexual is by sexual assault, that corrupts your standards and your expectations of what quote unquote affection and intimacy and romance and sexual relations or anything revolving like sensuality is supposed to be. It taints what you're like. It taints your preconceived notions and your expectations of what those experiences should look like. And then I think that's why a lot of girls who are abused sexually as children, they find themselves being so quote unquote promiscuous, so sexually charged, and you know that they have these reputations in school of getting started like in junior high and in middle school, and people call them sluts and whores and stuff like that, even though these men are the biggest whores we've ever known in human history. but people call them like sluts and whores and stuff like that. And immediately my guess is she's a victim of sexual abuse, because it's not normal. It's not normal for a girl to be so hypersexual like that. A girl, I'm not talking about a woman who's in her 30s and just is comfortable giving herself to these men who don't even deserve her. I'm talking about a child who doesn't even know what she's talking about. Like, I remember in 6th grade, there was this girl, and she was like, my cousin is so fine. Like, I would F the out of him if he wasn't my cousin. It's like, ay, Dios mío. Ay, Dios mío. I remember like looking at her with such concern. Like, is everything okay? Actually. Because that's not normal. A 6th grader, in 6th grade, you are 10 going on 11, typically. A 10-year-old girl, a 10-year young girl, an 11-year young girl saying that she would F the out of someone, you're not even supposed to be speaking like that. That's, it's concerning. It's concerning. Like I said earlier, the adults are the problem. That is what I realized in my life experience. The adults are the problem. The older people prey on the young. That's what that Epscom stuff is showing us. The older people, they exploit the young, because when you're young, you're gullible, you're impressionable, and you're trained to trust adults, to not ask questions, to not challenge, to not think critically. Most of the time, especially in this indoctrination system, so-called education system, you're not taught to and expected to actually critically think or analytically think or assess things in life, making it easier for you to fall vulnerable to prey, or to predators, and to become prey, obviously. And the adults, I think the adults, like I said before, they do us a huge disservice by not being honest with us about what exactly exists in this life. And I really think the adults are not honest with us, and don't really teach, not all, but like so many of us are not taught how to identify predators, or we have adults who enable the predators, like when the foolish women who say, oh, go sit on your Theo's lap, go sit on your uncle's lap, oh, go sit on you. There's no reason why a child needs to sit on anybody's lap. Chairs exist. The floor exists. There's no reason why she needs to be on anybody's lap. You got the foolish adults who enable the predatory behavior. And I think that it's because, or I think they don't teach us as much to identify the predators and to call them out, and have the audacity to do so, because then we will call them out. We would be calling them out. We would be pointing the fingers right at them. And that's not what they want. Anywho, I can speak more about that later. To summarize, that is the sexual abuse incident that happened with my foster brother. And like I said, no one ever talked to me. No one ever helped me with that. I don't know how a grown middle-aged woman in this society would not immediately suspect that something had happened to me when I was begging and pleading her to go take a bath on my own. And then after I got the soap stuck in my vagina, like it's no child's vaginal hole is even supposed to be open. So the fact that that happened to me is a huge red flag. The fact that it was documented by the school administration that not one but two boys were sexually abusing me in the school, like by putting their genitals against my butt and touching me on my vagina. And it was documented that I told, and no one ever gave me therapy. No one ever decided to put me, no one in the foster home, no one mandated that I see a therapist to talk about these things. So they all failed me tremendously. And things only worsened when I was transferred to my birth parents' custody and continued to experience these inappropriate and abusive situations. So yeah, it's just one after another. One adult after another just failed me. And it started all the way in the very beginning. I don't necessarily blame my foster sister for crouching down, watching, and going back upstairs. What that screams to me is that she more than likely had been sexually abused as well, and that's why she didn't see something wrong with her watching a child abuse me and not doing anything about it, because she was older than the both of us and she could have done something. She chose not to. That's her, you know, her karma to collect. Same with the boy, who, I'm not gonna say what I have in my mind. I would just say, like, he will get his karma. But I will say this, I do think that I would not be surprised if there is more allegations that have followed, if there are more allegations that have followed him, because, like, really quickly, because I know this is like a long video, I do remember, it's a vague, very hazy memory of mine, but there were girls that used to come up to the house and they lived across the street. In my poetry collection, I dedicated a poem to those girls. It's called The Girls Across the Street. And one of them, she was closer to my age. I think both of them were sisters. One of them used to come over to play dolls with us, and then she just stopped coming over to the house. And I think that maybe it has to do with this moment in time. I vaguely remember that she came over to the house and then she disappeared. And I was so young. I was probably like 4 or 5 or something, probably 5, kindergarten age. And I remember, like, I climbed the stairs, which was harder for me to do because I was so young and so small. But I made it up the stairs, and I just remember that there was a girl underneath the covers on top of the foster brother who had assaulted me. And his brother, who was closer to my age, was sitting on the other bed. Like I said, in the eldest the eldest grandchild's room, he had 2 single beds. In the previous episode, I mentioned that he had 2 single beds in his room. The boy, the youngest grandson, who was closer to my age, was sitting on the bed on the right side. On the left side, his brother, his older brother, the predatory 12-year-old, was there. And I remember the boy on the right side, the bed on the right side, I mean, he was watching his brother, like almost like he was looking at him almost like he was uncomfortable. And he was concerned, but he had like a slight smirk on his face too. I think he was just really uncomfortable. He was watching his brother. His brother had pulled the cover back. I think when I came upstairs, I probably said something like, "What are you guys doing?" You know? And he pulled the cover back, and that girl from across the street was on top of his body. And she had this look of like concern, like she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what was happening. And I remember, it's so disgusting. Like, it makes me so angry. He's a predator. He was a predator, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if more accusations like followed him if he's even still alive. I hope that people who do those kinds of things, you know, get their karma, but more so, I hope that they stop victimizing people. I don't know who that girl is. I don't even remember her name. But if she ever sees this video and she connects the dots and she recognizes me or my name or anything like that, and she has that memory, well, maybe hearing this will help her to like recall what happened to her, and she'll know like it wasn't in her head. It was not a figment of her imagination, because it can't be a figment of both of our imaginations, girl, you know. So I'm sorry that happened to her. I believe that something did happen to her. I don't remember how it ended. I think maybe she got off. I was saying, I don't remember how it ended. I think maybe she got off of the bed and came downstairs with me. My spirit led me up there, and I think that maybe that saved her. But the damage is already done when those kinds of things begin, and you're introduced to things like that you shouldn't be. And I think there's something deeper there. I think that somebody may have had some tapes or something like that. This is the early 2000s. There was a predator in the music industry who had a tape of himself sexually abusing a girl and urinating on her, and perhaps that circulated. I know it circulated amongst the Black American people. Maybe it was in the home. I don't know where he learned, you know, oral sexual activities or sexual acts from. Like, I think something was done to him, and maybe that's why he was peeing in the bed. I think he saw something. Like, we used to have VHS tapes at the time. Like I said, maybe like his mom had a tape and he saw it, but it's not normal for a 12-year-old boy to look for girls to victimize. That's not normal. And he did something to me. He did something to that girl who was across the street. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something to my sister as well, my biological sister. But they all failed us children in that home. Like I said, his sister used to bring, I think it's in the previous episode, his sister used to bring boys to the house. I don't know, I remember one or two different, I don't know if it's the same dude or there were two different dudes, because I think they had different hairstyles. But she used to bring these boys to the house, and instead of babysitting us, she would be on their laps. And I remember vividly one time she was in her room. I believe they were having sexual relations. I didn't know what sex was at the time, but we knew that they were doing something like inappropriate. And her brothers, both of her younger brothers, the one who abused me and another one, they kept peeking their head in. The lights were off. They kept like going in her room, and they kept coming back and giggling and stuff. And she was so caught up in what she was doing with that boy. And what I would say is any guy who will ever disgrace you, because that is disgraceful. When you are supposed to be doing your job, when you're supposed to be caring for children, when you're supposed to be cooking or whatever, a guy who respects you will just let you do the task at hand and not be like, oh, come on, it'll be quick. As if like he needs to go put his little pee-pee in his hand, and he needs to go shake it. He needs to move on with his life. Like, that's not your job as a woman, your job as a girl, your job as a lady. First of all, children are not supposed to be having relations. That'll never make sense to me, how people justify that. You got your whole adult life to go do stuff like that. Your childhood is for development and skill building, and that there should be nothing that has to do with sex or sensuality, none of that, in my opinion. But yeah, as ladies and women alike, both young women, mature women, like, you are not supposed to be at some dude's beck and call like that. And if he could disgrace you and disgrace your body like in front of children, and not have any consideration for the fact that like there are other people around, and not, just protect your dignity and your honor, he's showing you already that he's not a good person. In other words, he's not supposed to be smacking your behind, grabbing your behind. Those are the kinds of things he should be doing in the bedroom when it's just the two of you, if you want him to do those things. When you are amongst other people, especially children, you're not supposed to, in my opinion, you're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. There's an appropriate kiss, and then there's all that tongue kissing and stuff. I don't think you're supposed to be doing that, especially around children. This society, and I will close with this society is so perverted. It's the United States of perversion, United States of trafficking, United States of, you know what? I almost said something. These people over here in this society, they're so perverted. Look at the commercials, look at the so-called music. It's garbage, but we call it music for whatever reason. Everything is all perverted. The TV shows, so I don't even watch TV. I'm on YouTube. I don't watch TV. I don't consider YouTube TV. All of it's perverted. It's perverted. These people, these adults are perverted. An example, when there are children around, and a child says, wait, guys, I can't find the balls. And an adult says, that's what she said, stupid ass. That's what she said. Oh, that's what she said, stupid self. Why? And then it's so sad to me whenever the children start laughing. The children are not supposed to even know what that means. They're not supposed to they're not supposed to get it. And your dumbass is not even supposed, excuse me, but that gets me so upset, because again, the adults are so perverted, and that's why the children are so perverted. That's why the little girls don't blow bubbles, right? They talk about blowing boys. Like I said, in 6th grade, that little girl, when I was in the 6th grade, that little girl said, this is early 2000s. And that was like 2000 and, I don't know, 9 or something like that. And this girl said that she would F the out of her cousin, and she's in the 6th grade. Yeah, more than likely it was the adults around her house talking about some, I'll fuck this shit out of him. All that ratchet stuff. Debauchery. And then they sit here, these These adults sit here online talking about everything wrong with Gen Z. Everything is wrong with you. And that's why everything is wrong with Gen Z. If you're going to point fingers at us, point it back to yourself. I can't stand that. There's a domino effect. And as they say, the fish rots from the head down. These adults are a bunch of perverts. I'm not saying everyone is. I'm saying too many. This society is perverted. The Jezebel spirit of perversion is just all over this country, just legs open all over this country, just letting out pervert juice all over the masses, corrupting people's minds to the point where someone can't say something like, hold on, it's not fitting in, without people being like, giggling like a bunch of dummies, bunch of children, you know, who shouldn't even be laughing and giggling about something like that in the first place. It's really sad. But like I said, I don't know what happened to that boy and the boys at school. Actually, I do know a little bit more about the boys at school. Like, what I can say is just, I think it's just a classic case of them being exposed to things at home, watching things and coming across things that the parents and the adults are not doing a good job of keeping to themselves. And that's one of my issues with people who choose to be parents and really shouldn't be. If you know that you want to be reckless, you know that you don't want to put the drugs down, you don't want to be a role model, and you don't want to lead by example, do not have any children. These people go ahead and they have children, and then they're like, well, I need to have my fun. I'm gonna bring my man home. Thunder fire you. In the words of the Nigerians, thunder fire you. That's all I got to say. You will rue the day, bringing your perverted ways into the household, corrupting the innocence of the children instead of preserving it. Preserve your innocence. You have your whole life. You have your whole life to quote unquote grow up. You will never stop growing up. That's one of the biggest myths, is that we think. I heard someone say once, he told me, we grow up one day thinking that we will stop growing up. It's true. We will grow up. We have our whole lives to grow up. You don't have to rush. I'm so glad that I stayed away from boys. I didn't kiss boys. I didn't date boys when I was in high school. I focused. I didn't want to be a teen mom. I didn't want it to be a statistic. I didn't want to have a child. More than that, I didn't want to have a child who would resent me and despise me and have so much disdain towards me as I do my birth parents and all these so-called caregivers that I had, because they were all an abomination. An abomination. And I didn't want my hypothetical daughter to look at me one day and think of me as an abomination, as someone who could have done better, just simply chose not to. Like I said, I fear God too much. But on that note, ay Dios mío. Anywho, I know this video is very long. My camera battery is gonna die. But anywho, I will say that those are just some of the incidents of abuse that I witnessed and experienced in the foster home. As I mentioned, I do have a poetry collection and I do talk about a lot of those experiences. This is my Frida coupon or bookmark. It says, "Why do I need feet when I have wings to fly?" Go ahead, Frida. Anywho, so yes, if you want to learn more about my experiences in the foster home and you want to read about them, in addition to listening to me, of course, you are welcome to do so, then you can click the link in the description and you can find more information as well as the link to the poetry collection. And I will say that this was episode 3. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about some other things that are transpiring as it relates to my birth parents, who, if you're following the story, were back and they went back to the Midwest while we were still while my sister and I and my older siblings were also all in different foster homes in Miami. So that's where I will pick up, or that's where I'll continue with in the next episode. But for now, before my camera dies, I would say thank you so much for listening. As I usually say, I hope that this was insightful and informative for you. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for yeah, thank you for listening. That's what I was just saying. And on that note, because I know my camera's gonna die, I was gonna say other stuff, but I'm like, nah, it's okay. Thank you for listening. That's all I have to say. And take care. Oh no, let me backtrack. Let me say, on that note, I will say, let me act like I know how to do a freaking YouTube outro. I think it's late and like my battery's gonna die, so I'm like, like what do I say before it just, because it'll just like die out of nowhere. Anywho, so on that note, I will say thank you so much for listening. Tata mi amores. Take care.
Say to the ladies that been told that you cannot have, you tell the devil you's a liar. But I'ma say to the ladies that been told that you cannot have, you tell the devil you's a liar.